Well, look at Emmerdale. Last month in April, Emmerdale was my second to last soap opera because it was so boring and bad. But in May, it shoots up 4 spots to number 6 because they really had a good month. I think getting Meena away from this show has helped it. Now, the writing still has its poor qualities that I will certainly get into, but overall, I mostly enjoyed what I saw from Emmerdale in May. It felt like more of an ensemble cast, where before it was kind of Meena was more front and center for the past year than anything else, other than, of course, the Dingles. But the Dingles were front and center here. What really helped me put Emmerdale higher was that flash forward week. That was their event this month, and it worked for me. It shockingly made me, at least for 1 week, and probably only 1 week, care about most of the Dingles, which is something I have not felt from Emmerdale in many years. But that flash forward week was very well done, even if one of the stories was very weak, that being the Kane side of the story. Kane and Chaz being in a car wreck and Al having to save them. I hope that just puts an end to that rivalry between Al and those two. I'll save them from the burning car. Let's end those shenanigans. Probably not going to end it because, he destroyed the Woolpack. But I still felt that flash forward week was very compelling. I was glued to see what was actually going to happen. There wasn't a lot of payoff in 3 of the 4 stories that we got from that flash forward week. There was a huge payoff in the Noah story, and that was like a climax to that story. I've been talking about on a lot of these soaps how the younger characters are what makes me want to watch some of these shows, because they haven't been on these shows as long as these characters that have been on for decades and are very played out. There's a lot you could do with younger characters. They bring a fresh energy to these canvases. And so Noah being this kind of psycho this month worked well. So I am probably going to talk mostly about this flash forward week, because out of all the soap operas, that week of Emmerdale was probably the best week of any soap opera the month of May. But I still have to grade Emmerdale as a whole. And as a whole, Emmerdale still has a lot of weaknesses. But the flash forward week was Gabby thinking Jamie is following her. She's in the woods with the gun. And what Emmerdale always does well, I shit on the British soap operas and their stunts all the time. But Emmerdale does a very good job of directing their stunts. Their stunts always look good. And this was a very cinematic week, and I think that's what I liked about it. It was a vibe. I talk about on Home and Away sometimes how I enjoy when they're doing really overdramatic shit, how it's a vibe. Emmerdale was a vibe that week, and I just really enjoyed it. But yeah, Gabby thinks she's being followed in the woods. She ends up shooting her gun. But we still don't know for sure if that was Jamie, but we think it was Jamie was in the woods. Another story from the flash forward week was Faith having to come to the point where her cancer has returned, and she's only told Maura so far, and Maura has to really hold this with her and now tell the rest of the Dingles that Faith's cancer is back. Now I talked about the Kane and Chaz part and Al saving them from the burning car. But the main story to come out of the flash forward week was Noah, who had been using a drone to look into Chloe's window and kind of taking a shitload of pictures of Chloe with this drone. Obviously looking very obsessed with Chloe. They had broken up months ago. And Noah even ended up breaking into her bedroom, stealing her journal. Noah sets up Jacob, puts the journal in Jacob's backpack to set him up to make it look like he's the one that broke into the house and into Chloe's room. But of course, when Chloe turns to Noah for help and as a friendship, that's when things start to get a little weird. And that's when Chloe ends up finding these thousands, well, it seemed like thousands, but at least hundreds of pictures of Chloe on his computer. And of course, freaks out. Noah tries to explain to her and things get even worse. He gets a tad violent, taking after his father. And I thought they were going to tie Al into this, and Al was going to teach Noah a lesson, since Cain taught Al's son a lesson. But it is Carrie who ends up trying to teach Noah a lesson. He falls into this like dug grave, and she wants to keep him in there to teach him a lesson and, scare him. But once Noah's out of that, it becomes these dynamics between Noah and Charity, his mother, because has Charity gone wrong in raising Noah? I mean, look at the people Noah was raised with was Charity and Cain, and all the problems they've had over the years. And Cain's been a psychopath himself at many points in this show's history, so he is taking after his father, really. And Noah does not want to take responsibility for his actions, and that was kind of the main point going into the end of the month. Noah wants to plead not guilty. Charity, of course, wants to teach her son a lesson to plead guilty. He did commit these crimes of basically stalking Chloe. So in the end, Noah does plead guilty. He apologizes to Chloe and decides to run away. That was the last episode I watched for May of Emmerdale. Did not see the last 2 episodes of the month because I'm recording this before that airs. But I thought the flash forward week was great. The Noah story climaxing the way it did fit the characters involved. I just think the show without Meena we're getting more bang for our buck. Now let's get to some of the weaknesses, or the main weakness is that we have this story where Ethan has this moral dilemma of representing this racist man in court who attacked Billy, and it seems like a hate crime, and Ethan is black himself. And they set this up well for Ethan having this dilemma does he try to do what's best for his career and take this high profile case that could help his career get even bigger to, try and prove a racist innocent of attacking a black man? Or should he not do this because he is also black? It was a nice setup to a moral dilemma, but it, of course, had to go off the rails at the end, where the racist man, Jordan, intimidates Billy to get him to back off the charges. And Al, another black man, witnesses this happening, and they go to the police with that. And so Ethan decides, because of that, he does not want to represent Jordan anymore because he does seem racist. But then they go out the deep end with Jordan to make him a super racist cartoon who then attacks Ethan too. It was typical soap opera, I guess. But I felt like they had a really good moral dilemma on their hands with this story, but it seemed rushed, and I guess that's where the story ends. And Ethan and Billy have a talk, and, like a brotherhood about being black. So I get that the lesson they wanted to teach with this, but story-wise, the setup was way better if they would have just kept with it rather than go off the deep end and rush it this month. And now it's basically already over. We've had more of Marlon recovering from his stroke. They continue to do a good, realistic job with that. We have Layla doing cocaine. There's a whole drug story going on. I don't really like what they're doing with the character of Layla right now. And we have David and Victoria being boring. And I guess David's kind of bored in that relationship as well. Yeah, these two, the actor and actress, they got in trouble backstage for an incident. And since their return these last couple months, they haven't had a lot of airtime. I feel like this relationship lost any momentum it had, so I don't know where they go from here, but it's pretty boring. David was going to propose, but it was too soon for Vic. Whatever. I don't really care. But Emmerdale goes up 4 spots from 10th to 6th in my rankings for May 2022 because of the flash forward week mostly. They made me care about some of the dingles for a week, which I haven't happened in a while. We'll see what happens in June. The writing for this show is still very questionable and still weak for the most part. But I like what I see without Meena, and I do think the show has more potential now than it's had for the past year or two, in my opinion.